Jeannie Seely was not just a singer. She was Miss Country Soul, a woman who bent Nashville to her will, who carried both elegance and defiance, who stood on the Opry stage like she belonged there. Because she did. Her voice wasn't smooth perfection. It was raw, aching, vulnerable, and real. It carried the hunger of a farm girl who knew what it meant to go without, and the determination of a woman who refused to accept no as the end of her story. For 6 decades, Jeannie Seely was a thread in the fabric of American country music. Grammy winner, trailblazer, radio host, and Grand Ole Opry queen. But her journey was not paved with glitter. Behind the sequins, behind the rhinestones, behind that fearless smile, there were scars, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And as her body began to fail in her final year, those scars became impossible to hide. The world saw the sparkle. But behind the curtain, Jeannie Seely's last days were filled with struggle, sorrow, and a tragic battle she could not win. This is the shocking truth behind her death. Before we continue, take a moment. If Jeannie Seely ever made you feel something with her music, if Don't Touch Me ever reminded you of longing, if her voice ever brought you comfort on a lonely night, leave a like on this video. Let's pay tribute to the woman who gave so much of herself to the world. Marilyn Jean Seely was born on July 6, 1940 in Titusville, Pennsylvania. Hers was not a glamorous beginning. She was raised in a small farming community near Townville, in a house where money was scarce, chores were endless, and dreams often felt too fragile to speak aloud. Her father, Leo, worked the land, his hands roughened by years of toil. He loved banjo music, and though he didn't have the luxury of time to play often, he passed down a deep appreciation for rhythm and song. Her mother, Irene, was a homemaker with a gentle spirit who filled their kitchen with hymns and stories. They didn't have much, but they had love, and they had music. By the age of 11, little Jeannie was already singing on local radio stations, her voice trembling with nerves but brimming with promise. She would climb into her father's truck to travel to the station, clutching sheet music like a lifeline. Those broadcasts didn't make her famous, but they ignited something inside her. In high school, she was a cheerleader, bright and determined. But she wasn't like the other girls. While classmates dreamed of staying close to home, Jeannie dreamed of something bigger, something she couldn't even fully describe, except to say it lived in Nashville. Teachers told her to focus on realistic goals. Neighbors thought she was just a daydreamer, but Jeannie held tight to her conviction. One day, I'm going to stand on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. After graduation, Jeannie didn't head straight to Nashville. She took a detour west, chasing opportunity where she could find it. She moved to Los Angeles, where she found work at Liberty Records, not as a singer, but as a secretary. By day, she typed memos for executives and answered phones. By night, she sang in small clubs, waiting for someone to notice. She rubbed shoulders with stars who walked casually through the offices. Glenn Campbell, Buck Owens. She was so close to the dream she could almost taste it. But California wasn't Nashville, and the Opry was still a world away. Jeannie packed up her car and drove east toward Tennessee, toward the destiny that had called her name since childhood. Nashville in the 1960s was a city of broken hearts and broken dreams. Thousands came with guitars and notebooks, and most left with nothing. But Jeannie wasn't most. In 1966, everything changed. She signed with Monument Records, and the label handed her a song that would alter her life forever. Don't Touch Me. Written by Hank Cochran, it was a ballad of desire restrained, of longing unfulfilled, of passion too strong to be denied. When Jeannie sang it, something happened. Her voice, a mix of smoky pain and aching tenderness, wrapped around the lyrics and made them unforgettable. The single climbed to the top 10 on the country charts, but more than that, it won her a Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance. Suddenly, Jeannie Seely wasn't just a secretary chasing dreams. She was a star. Nashville was about to meet its rebel. On the Grand Ole Opry stage, women traditionally wore long gowns, demure dresses, and modest smiles. But Jeannie Seely walked out in miniskirts, pantsuits, and go-go boots. The audience gasped. The traditionalists scowled, but the fans, they roared. Jeannie wasn't trying to shock anyone. She was simply being herself. She later said, "I wasn't trying to change the Opry. I was just trying to be comfortable. If that made people uncomfortable, then maybe they needed to be." Her look, her sound, her unapologetic presence earned her a nickname, Miss Country Soul. But behind that nickname was more than style. It was substance. Jeannie's songs were full of grit, longing, and real life. She wasn't singing fairy tales. She was singing truth. In 1967, Jeannie Seely was invited to join the Grand Ole Opry, the holy grail of country music. For her, it was the realization of the promise she'd made as a teenager in Pennsylvania. One day, I will stand on that stage. But she didn't just stand there once. She returned again and again until she became inseparable from the Opry itself. Over the years, Jeannie made more than 5,300 appearances at the Opry, more than any artist in its 100-year history. When people thought of the Opry, they thought of Jeannie Seely. She was its constant presence, its fierce defender, its unshakable spirit. As her solo career soared, Jeannie also found magic in partnership. In 1969, she teamed up with Jack Green, and together they recorded "Wish I Didn't Have to Miss You." The song was a smash. Fans fell in love not just with the harmony of their voices, but with the genuine warmth between them. On stage, they were a dynamic duo. Off stage, they were friends for life. It cemented Jeannie as more than just a one-hit wonder. She was a star in her own right, and an indispensable part of the country music family. But with fame came shadows. Nashville whispered about her miniskirts. Critics dismissed her boldness as rebellion for its own sake. She was praised and judged in equal measure. Still, Jeannie didn't bend. She stood tall in her boots and sequins, proving that authenticity mattered more than approval. She had arrived, but behind the glamour, new struggles were already brewing. For all her brilliance on stage, Jeannie Seely's personal life was marked by heartbreak. In 1969, at the height of her success, she married one of Nashville's greatest songwriters, Hank Cochran. He was already a legend, penning classics like "Make the World Go Away." Together, they were a power couple of country music. He with his pen, she with her voice. But the marriage was tempestuous. Hank's drinking, the strains of the music business, and the constant pull of fame tore at them. By 1979, after a decade together, the marriage ended. Jeannie was left with memories, songs, and scars that never fully healed. Still, she credited Hank with believing in her talent and with giving her the song that made her career, "Don't Touch Me." Even after divorce, she carried his influence like a bittersweet melody. Years later, she remarried, this time to Nashville attorney Gene Ward. With Gene, she found stability, laughter, and companionship. For nearly 3 decades, he was her anchor. But in 2016, tragedy struck again. Gene passed away, leaving Jeannie widowed, grieving, and alone. She had known love, but she had also known loss, the kind that never truly fades. In 1977, Jeannie Seely's life nearly ended in a devastating car accident. The crash left her broken and bloodied, with injuries that threatened not only her career but her very survival. Doctors doubted whether she would ever walk properly again, let alone stand beneath the blinding lights of the Opry stage. But Jeannie was not a woman who surrendered. Through grueling pain and relentless therapy, she clawed her way back. And soon she was not only walking, she was performing. Her return to the Opry wasn't just a comeback, it was a resurrection. Still, the scars from that wreck lingered. For the rest of her life, she carried the aches and pains of that night, a reminder that every performance afterward was a victory. As if fate hadn't tested her enough, Jeannie faced another cruel blow years later. Her Tennessee home was destroyed by a flood, sweeping away cherished memories, keepsakes, and mementos of her career. Photographs, stage costumes, pieces of a life built from nothing, all lost in the rising waters. Most people would crumble under the weight of so many losses, but not Jeannie. She rebuilt, she moved forward. She refused to let disaster rob her of her joy. It was the same resilience that defined every part of her life. She bent, but she never broke. Being a woman in Nashville in the 1960s and 1970s was not easy. The industry often treated female performers as secondary, decorations rather than innovators. But Jeannie Seely fought to be heard, not just as a singer, but as a songwriter. She wrote hits for others, including Merle Haggard's Life of a Rodeo Cowboy. She became one of the first women to regularly wear pants on the Opry stage. She challenged the unspoken rules that said women should smile, sing, and stay silent. Jeannie once said, "I never wanted to just fit in. I wanted to stand out. I wanted to be heard." And she was. For decades. As the years rolled on, Jeannie Seely remained active, refusing to step away from the stage she loved. In her 70s and 80s, while most of her peers retired, she was still recording, still performing, still standing beneath the Opry lights. In 2017, she was honored for her 50th anniversary as an Opry member, a milestone few ever reach. And in 2020, she released an American classic, an album that proved her voice still carried the same soul and grit that had lifted her in the 1960s. She also became a radio host, launching Sundays with Seely on SiriusXM's Willie's Roadhouse in 2018, sharing music, stories, and wisdom with a new generation of fans. But behind her laughter, her body was growing weaker. The sparkle remained, but time was catching up with her. In 2024, the world got its first glimpse of the battle Jeannie was waging behind the scenes. She was hospitalized for acute diverticulitis and dehydration, a dangerous intestinal illness that left her frail and struggling. Fans worried, but Jeannie downplayed it. She laughed it off, insisting she'd be fine. And for a while, she was. She even returned to the Opry stage, refusing to let illness define her. But by early 2025, the storm returned with greater force. In March, she was hospitalized again, this time for complications that required multiple surgeries. Then came pneumonia. Her body, once so resilient, was now fragile, frail, and struggling to keep pace with her indomitable spirit. She spent 11 days in the ICU, her loved ones fearing the worst. Ever the fighter, Jeannie joked about seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, but realizing it was neon, so she knew it belonged to her. Even at death's door, she found humor, but her condition never truly improved. On August 1st, 2025, Jeannie Seely's battle came to an end. She passed away at Summit Medical Center in Hermitage, Tennessee. The official cause: complications from an intestinal infection. She was 85 years old. Her final appearance at the Opry had been back in February 2025. That night, she walked onto the stage as she had thousands of times before, more than 5,300 times, more than any artist in history. The audience applauded, unaware they were witnessing history, unaware they were watching the last performance of Miss Country Soul. When the news broke, the Opry family and the entire world of country music fell silent. Tributes poured in from every corner of the music world. Fans left flowers outside the Opry house. Country stars shared memories of her fierce humor, her kindness, her trailblazing spirit. And then came the words of Dolly Parton, who said simply, "She was one of my dearest friends. She was one of the greatest singers in Nashville. We all loved her, and we will miss her." It was a farewell worthy of a legend, but it didn't make the loss any less painful. Jeannie Seely's story is one of resilience. She rose from a Pennsylvania farm girl to a Grammy-winning star. She redefined the image of women at the Opry. She survived car crashes, floods, heartbreaks, and widowhood, and still she sang. She gave herself to the world, her laughter, her songs, her soul. Her legacy is not just in the records she made or the awards she won, but in the defiance she embodied. She proved that authenticity, courage, and resilience could carve a permanent place in history. She was the Opry's iron heart, a bridge between tradition and rebellion, a voice that carried fire until the very end. Jeannie Seely's final days were tragic, filled with pain, illness, and the quiet surrender of a body that could no longer keep up with her will. But the true tragedy is not just how she died. It's that one day, the Opry lights shone without her. That one day, the stage she had filled thousands of times stood empty. Yet, her spirit remains in every song, in every laugh, in every woman who dares to walk onto a stage unapologetically herself. At 85, Jeannie Seely's story came to an end, but her song will never die. If you believe her story deserves to be remembered, leave a like on this video, share it with others, and let the world know Miss Country Soul may be gone, but her voice echoes forever.